Little fun trivia is tomorrow is our 60th anniversary for Lipscomb Pitts Insurance. So we're having a huge full day of celebrations, but tomorrow is 60th for Lipscomb Pitts Insurance. And as Grace alluded, it's really tough. My wife always cringes when anybody asks me what I do or where I work or whatever else, because it just takes forever to kind of go through all the different things. But the bottom line is, to me, I grew up in a household that was all about helping people, and that's been my life since birth. And it's amazing now to be able to weave marketing, which was my background, my degree in college, with engagement and helping people and telling positive stories. And so it's an amazing journey. To me, I look at the Lipscomb Pitts Breakfast Club as kind of a social laboratory for how to use corporate resources, how to use marketing to be able to make a difference in the community and to be a catalyst to drive change. And to me, that's kind of the fun of this, is that the Breakfast Club, when you whittle it down, it's all marketing. How do you get people involved in the city? How do you get them engaged? How do you lower the barriers so that together we can make a difference here in the community? And I think that's the fun thing that we're going to talk about is, one, just how corporate philanthropy has dramatically shifted and why engagement is so critical, but also, two, what you can do on your end based on some of the things that we've learned, best practices, to be able to make it really easy. And I'm a big believer in, if you can make giving back really easy, that it doesn't have to be separate, it doesn't have to be something that you think about on a Sunday afternoon to take family time away. It can be something that you do day in and day out, continually, that when you look back over a year, small things that you've done day in and day out have created a huge tidal wave behind you of impact, and you've changed lives. And so that's our focus, is making engagement easy, giving back continually, sharing positive stories, but doing it together with all of you. So that's what we're going to be talking about. This is an old video, but it shows you what we do.
When I came to speak, I came to just plant seeds. I didn't realize those seeds were going to take on, roots and grow them so fast, and people will respond this greatly and be able to mobilize an entire community and sit it behind, and now blessing 300 kids just a few months from that time frame. I think it's just mind-boggling, and it's just exciting.
We're helping a lot of less fortunate kids, about 300 less fortunate kids, getting them new shoes, new socks, and just making their day by being able to help them, washing their feet, sign of humility and compassion for kids and people in the community.
It was not planned originally, but you can see there a lot of planning went into it. And the Samaritan's Feet folks are fantastic. Breakfast Club folks all came together and have a lot of volunteers here.
I committed to them that not only would we want to help support the event, but I wanted to feel the humility and be a part of just helping out, because the story is beautiful. And when you hear how many people he's touched, just to be a small part of it is pretty special.
Dr. Martin Luther King has this dream about this beloved community. And I really think the Breakfast Club, actually, I really believe they embodied what that beloved community is, because now we've seen people from different backgrounds. We've seen executives all come together here to come wash the feet of the impoverished kids of Memphis.
To give you kind of an idea, and obviously it's an old video based on the Grizzlies players that are there, but we do it 2 times a year. And the neat thing about that is you have presidents, you have CEOs, you have business leaders that are coming out in their suits, washing the kids' feet. We do it during a business day. At this point, after 2 per year, we've done 5 years worth. We've done thousands and thousands of kids. But the neat thing is that all that's done for you. So the shoes are already purchased. We've already organized the kids. They show up. All you have to do is show up, plug in, show the kids love. That's in January. We kick off MLK Day nationwide. But the kids come in flip-flops because it's so cold, that's all they can afford. And their family has to choose between putting food on the table versus giving shoes to their children. So for our end, you as a volunteer, you show up, you show them love. The kids are walking away saying this is the greatest day of their lives. And all you have to do is plug in, show love, and then plug out. And so on our end, that right there actually embodies what we do every day and what we strive to do every day. So that's kind of what we put up there as the first piece. So here's the quick history. Normally we don't go into a lot of detail on this, but I think you as marketing executives will love this. So the Lipscomb Pitts Breakfast Club started as a franchise. So it started in 2005 by a franchisee that just bought the territory rights to the Mid-South. She wasn't really even from Memphis. The corporate was based out of Florida. And at that point, there was 8 big events. Signature Breakfast is where we get the name The Breakfast Club. You bring in a national guest speaker. You do these 8 events a year, and it's all business focused. 100% business networking. The whole tag was, we develop business relationships, period. That's it. So there was no purpose, no higher cause, no giving back, no charitable effort, nothing. Only 8 events. Price tag on that was about $12,000 to $15,000. You divide that by 8, that's a lot of money for only 8 events with no real purpose. So I moved to Memphis in 2007 from Los Angeles. Clear Channel Radio actually is the one now, iHeartMedia, that transferred me in. So I'm moving here. Breakfast Club being a franchise, there's one in Los Angeles, so I knew about it. Coming to Memphis, grew up in the insurance business with my dad. Marketing was my background, philanthropy, events, media. Worked with Bert Griffin and Dick Clark, so when you look at all the TV stuff that we do, media was a big part of my past as well, so that's where it kind of starts to make sense. But the reality is, moving here, I met Johnny Pitts. And he's like, hey, we've got this Lipscomb Pitts Breakfast Club. We're the title sponsor of. We're spending a lot of money. We've got 8 events. We're bringing a guest speaker. There's no real purpose. But here's the great opportunity. They're going to dissolve, and they're allowing the franchisees to buy out the rights. And he's like, I'm thinking about buying out not only the franchisee, but the franchise rights and bringing it in-house. But if we do that, there needs to be more to this, because my own agency thinks I'm insane. So even here at Lipscomb Pitts Insurance, all the other groups thought Johnny Pitts was absolutely insane. And that's why we give him full credit as being the founder, because he took a big risk by putting our resources, our name on this thing, but also too fighting to be able to bring it in-house, because our sales team literally thought, like, why in the world is an insurance agency sponsoring and now thinking of buying a networking organization? Like, that makes no sense whatsoever. So anyway, fast forward, we meet. He fills me in and we say, okay, well, if we're going to do this, business networking, basically, if you look at it, you're a dinosaur. So if you think about it yourself, people like Bill Rhodes, Fred Smith, they don't go to networking organizations. If you're about business networking and that's it, you're going to be gone. Because you end up with just a bunch of salespeople passing out business cards, and over time, no one really helps. There's no higher purpose, there's no cause, there's no real glue that binds. And so that was one of the first things we said, okay, there's got to be a higher purpose, there's got to be a vision, there's got to be a focus on philanthropy and giving back. But also, too, how cool would it be to do crazy things like, I have a friend in Los Angeles that makes a ton of money just setting up lunches for executives. And these are people like George Lucas, but he's like, hey, who do you want to meet this month? I'll set up a lunch for you. How great would it be if we had a group here that did that same thing? Who do you want to meet? Let's do it. Let's team you up. Let's pair it up. Let's collaborate, focus on together how we can make a difference. And so that actually was the genesis of just throwing out a bunch of ideas, and then Johnny saying, you know what, you're kind of crazy. Let's write this marketing plan. Let's write this business plan. Let's see what we can do, and let's figure it out together. And we're going to buy out the Lipscomb Pitts Breakfast Club, bring it in-house. I'm going to hire you, which the agency literally thought was absolutely insane, to run this thing, and let's see where this journey takes us. And so now, it's kind of cool that we bought out the rights. We're a privately funded catalyst. We have 75 partners, including FedEx, AutoZone, Smith & Nephew, Baptist, all the way down to Napa Cafe and Germantown Day Spa. So small, medium, and large businesses, all putting the money in. So what used to be kind of a good old boy country club, we flipped the model and said, you know what, everything we're going to do now is about the community. We're going to take the resources, very much like St. Jude, take them over here, and we're going to reinvest it all back and make it all free and give it back. And so now we host almost, started with 8 events, now we host almost 200 events a year. So dramatically changed. Here are the 5 pillars. This is the original business plan. These are the 5 things that we picked out. Coming from Los Angeles, working in New York and Chicago and cities like that, these are 5 things you can pick out in every city across America and you can work on. These are the 5 that we decided we were going to draw our flag in the sand on and pick out. The first one is combined forces and funds. Strategic corporate philanthropy, getting all these companies on the same page, small, medium, and large, to make a strategic difference. And that's where everybody knows, especially FedEx and some of these, they're the first ones that get hit up for millions of dollars. The reality is they can't fund everyone. They can't do everything. AutoZone, same thing. The reality, if we can make it bite-sized pieces, though, all of us can come together and make a huge difference. But you need a third party. You need someone that can step back 30,000-foot view and say, okay, I know you and you and you. These are things that are near and dear to your heart, near and dear to your heart. We can pull over here, and I'm only asking for maybe $500 or $1,000, and I can ask you for the same thing, and together we'll get there. But now it's not just one group or one company or one organization having to shoulder it all. Next one is connecting all 4 quadrants. This is a huge piece of this. So bringing together government, education, nonprofit, and business. And I would argue that there's actually 5 now with the faith community. We kind of put that into nonprofit, but the reality is bringing together the quadrants of our city. And when you look at a signature breakfast, raise your hand if you've been out to a Lipscomb Pitts signature breakfast. So, I mean, you know, you've got the mayor, Governor Haslam comes out, we'll talk about him in a second, but You've got government leaders, you've got education leaders, you've got nonprofit leaders, all the executive directors, and you have obviously the CEOs. And we do the seating chart, so we know magically you're all seated together. So we force the conversation so that all the 4 quadrants together are there collaborating and communicating. Simplifying engagement. So all of our events are totally free. And that's a big game changer. Most organizations, obviously, you have to pay to go to the events. But the reality is we say if we can't underwrite it 100%, we're not going to do it. And that includes parking, food, speaker, everything. And the neat thing is we just throw it out there, first come, first serve, totally free. And that's our belief is you got to lower the barrier to entry. But that way I can sit there and look at any student, whether they're high school, college, or whatever, and say, you know what? You can get involved just as much as the CEO of a company can. So whether you're a high school student, a college student, you're retired, you're a business professional, whatever it is, you can get involved and make a difference in our city for free. Fourth one is turnkey volunteer opportunities. So we'll talk about why this is important, but the reality is very much like Samaritan's Feet. You have to make it easy. So nonprofits are really struggling with this on a day-to-day basis, is how do they make it really easy? How do they get ambassadors? How do they get more people to experience what they're doing? Our big belief is make experiential opportunities and make volunteerism extremely easy. So like Samaritan's Feet, we organize everything. All you have to do is show up, whether it's a nonprofit tour, a volunteer day, action project, scrubbing graffiti off a bridge, planting trees and flowers, tutoring. Everything's done for you, so all you have to do is show up, plug in, and plug out. And then the last one is a positive news pipeline. And obviously that's something that Memphis is much needed. But when you look across, I travel a lot to Nashville, Los Angeles, it's the same thing. You turn on the 10 o'clock news there in Nashville, it's murder, 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 murder. Exact same thing. So the reality is every city combats this, and it's a huge battle on how do you share positive stories. And that could be a whole session in and of itself in terms of how you can make a difference and what we can do about it and why it's this way. But the reality is there's a huge need for it. And so that's where the Outgrowth, we have a newsletter that's totally free, has all of our opportunities on there. But that actually started, then the Daily News at the time reached out and said, hey, we love what you're doing. Have you ever thought about a column? I thought it'd be like 3 weeks and I'm done. And all of a sudden they're like, no, we need more and more and more. Now I've been doing it for 5 years and it's in the Sunday Commercial Appeal. That then led to a radio show because they're like, hey, we love your column, could you do a radio show? And that led to the TV show, and then that led to a book, and then that led to a televised award show, and it's just gone on and on and on. But it's all focused on sharing positives and engagement opportunities. So here's where we talk about the shift. These are things that you know, but I think it's kind of neat because we do this talk a lot in other cities and to college students and different groups, and it's really neat to start pointing it out. So when you look at the big shifts in corporate philanthropy and what's going on, so it used to be about cutting a check. That's good stewards, I'm done, cut the check, don't really need to be involved. Now it's about engagement. So everything is shifting toward the dual expectation of we still expect you to give financially, but now more importantly, we want to see you out physically involved. And so you see it on USA Today, and there'll be a quote I'll show you in just a second, but consumers are now looking at corporate America to be a part of the solution. So the reality is if you're not engaged, there's another company that is, and that's who I'm going to buy my products and services from. Literally everything I'm wearing, the bracelets, all this, gives back in some way. Shoes, give back. Every single thing I wear gives back. My shampoo benefits St. Jude. So from my standpoint, I literally make my personal decisions based on what are you doing to give back to the community. If you're not, I'm going to find somebody else that is. Tom Shadyac said it best. He was our guest speaker in January. He's like, look, here's the reality. Starbucks is going to become our Bucks. Walmart is going to become our Mart. Because if you're not giving back, somebody else is, and by natural gravitation, your consumers are going to pull to them. So the reality is engagement is huge. We need to see you out in the community. We need to see you doing good. Employees, millennials, any of you that deal with millennials, you know this. They're looking for engagement. The groups now are coming in. Our employees that want to work here at Lipscomb & Pitts, our potential employees are coming in. They're saying, not how much money am I going to make? How are you going to make me a better person? How are you going to get me involved in the community? So that's their very first litmus test on, we want to work for you because you're involved in the community and you're going to show us that pathway. Also, too, companies take a leadership role and offer training and education for philanthropy. We had a guest speaker a while back with the Memphis Grantmakers Forum, and he does a lot of research. But the reality is he talked about how it used to be giving back and philanthropy and engagement was taught at the dinner table. Well, now everybody's so busy, your family doesn't get together at the dinner table. Usually it's at like Nukes, as you're running to soccer practice. It used to be in the church. Well, now unfortunately the church is fragmented and many people aren't necessarily going like they should or they used to. It used to be at the civic hall, the town hall. It used to be with the political leaders. Well, now the reality is because all of those groups have fragmented, people are now turning to companies to teach them how to be involved, how to give back. So that's extremely important. These are the headlines. I think these are just fun. There's a million of them, but Forbes magazine, companies without social impact culture will soon be obsolete. Can't say it better myself. Consumers looking at corporate America to be a part of the solution, USA Today. Soft Edge, just read that book from Rich Karlgaard, publisher of Forbes. For the first time in history, impressions of openness, sincerity, and authenticity are more important to corporate reputation in the United States than the quality of products and services. Very interesting quote. In there, he also cites an Edelman trust survey. Only 19% of America trusts business leaders to make ethical decisions. So when you talk about engagement, building trust, which looks benefits insurance, selling insurance, that's trust. It's all trust. So I'm sure many of you in your businesses, trust is a huge factor. These are some other quotes I'm not going to necessarily go into, but the reality is it talks about the correlation between having meaning in your work tied back to happiness and productivity. And so the more you can tie the two together, so in other words, it doesn't have to be Saturday or Sunday, we're going to leave it up to you, we're going to do it together and it's going to be woven together, well, all of a sudden now you'll find that your employees will be much happier and more productive. So marketing major, product, price, place, promotion, they added a few more after I graduated, people, process, position. My big advocacy is that purpose is that next piece of this. So if your company does not have purpose, defined purpose, it's going to be very difficult to be sustainable. Here are a few other ones that we talk about. Volunteerism has changed. It used to be that a nonprofit could say, hey, you're a chair, you're this, or you're that. Can you organize everything? I'm going to focus on my programs and fundraising, but I need you to focus over here on pulling the volunteers. The reality is now those have all gone away, and so you've lost me if you're expecting very much other than me just to show up, do a little bit, and then plug out. And that's where groups like ours, it's extremely important, and we work with Volunteer Mid-South, the Alliance for Nonprofit Excellence, and all these other groups, for making volunteerism extremely easy so that it literally is just plug in and plug out. But that's the key. So these are fun ones just to put up there, really more for the college students, but to me, it's really important to look at where power comes from. And this is you as a person, so your personal brand, your personal power, so how much you make at your company, but also to your company. So this is an organizational power. You either have a lot of money, a lot of resources, or you have access to a lot of influence, access to a lot of people. And that's really important to understand is when you talk about giving back, it really can get you ahead because it gives you a unique storyline, it creates opportunities, because opportunity is life. You work for a company, but the reality is someone hired you at that company, right? So you work for people. People provide opportunities for people. The more you're engaged in the community, the more people you're going to meet. Do the math. And then the last piece of this too is professional and personal growth. But the reality is, the more you give, the more you receive. Privately funded catalysts, companies that are engaged, they call it philanthrocapitalism, capital philanthropy, using business to give back. But it's hugely needed more than ever in today's society. So it boils down to this. This is my quote that my team is kind of probably sick of hearing it at this point. But the reality is, I'm a big advocate, and this is something I learned at a young age. Money is an amazing resource, but it doesn't physically solve a single problem. Put a dollar bill on the table, it doesn't walk, doesn't talk, doesn't move, doesn't shake anybody's hand, doesn't physically solve a single problem. People do. Back to people provide opportunities for people. We need you, all of you, and your companies and your employees to be involved. It's good for your business because it gives you visibility, it gives you a storyline, it gives you all the opportunities, but also more importantly, that's what moves our city forward. So when you look at it, what it boils down to us is engagement. How do we make engagement for all of our employees here at Lipscomb Pitts Insurance and all the partners of Lipscomb Pitts Breakfast Club and all the citizens of the Mid-South? How do we make it really easy? Because we understand that people solve problems, and we need you and your thoughts and your expertise and your time to give back and to be involved. And the more we do, then we all win. So how do we do it? I'm going to dive through really fast on some of these because these are all free and open to you. And if you haven't been out to a signature breakfast, just come grab us and we'll get you out to the next one. Our next one is Don Mann. It's October 23rd, hosted by FedEx. He is the SEAL Team 6 trainer. So he's a Navy SEAL, SEAL Team 6 member, but also the trainer of them. So he's going to be extremely fascinating. But anyway, that's our next one. But anyway, here's some of the things. There's our 75 partners. I know it looks very small, but that's all of our partners. Those are the ones that philanthropically underwrite the cost of everything we do. So we throw the money in a hat, that's our budget for the year, and that tells us how much we can do. We try to do as much as we can. There's our programs. Here's what a typical year looks like. So last year we did 187 events. It's a lot of radio shows, it's lunches, it's tapings, it's signature breakfast events, it's receptions, it's nonprofit tours, it's female business leader lunches, it's events with the University of Memphis, connecting business leaders to students, it's sales forces, it's marketing and HR. We have lunch, give back afternoons, give back lunches, nonprofit tours, cleanups, clean up the Wolf River, McKellar Lake, Samaritan's Feet shoe distributions, an annual golf scramble that raises money, Memphis Rocks film screening. So it just covers a huge, huge spectrum of different events. There's where you get the namesake. We're still obviously called the Lipscomb Pitts Breakfast Club. It's one of those things where after 10 years now, the name is there, and it's one of those that it doesn't describe what we do at all, but hey, it's the name. So we're named after our signature breakfast series. We do it 8 times a year. It follows the school calendar, January, February, off in March, back on April, May, on heavy now, August through November. We have around 400 business leaders, 60% executives, 50% guests. Lots of different themes. Our last one was Dr. Bertice Berry, best-selling author, comedian, absolutely hilarious, huge heart. But that was a fun one. And then obviously you've got the SEAL Team 6, Navy SEAL, and then you've got a pretty wide spectrum from that. Michael Hyatt kicks us off in January, so if any of you are a fan of his work, he's our speaker in January, and then Bill Courtney actually in November. So each night before, we host a reception. This is totally free. You can come out to all of these. Dr. Bertice Berry last Thursday was at the Clock Center. So we had hundreds and hundreds of youth. That's a little crazy little thing. So we had hundreds of youth out there, high school, college students. It was supposed to be over at 7, and she ended up staying till 8:15 just because the students were so enthralled and asking so many questions. But it's 5:30 to 7 usually, and it ranges all over the place. You're going to try to chase it down? Good job. Add that to the resume. Bug killer. But anyway, these are all totally free, easy opportunity. It's all Q&A driven and fun, and they'll usually talk about 10-15 minutes, and the rest is Q&A. And like Bertice Berry, man, she went on for like almost 2 hours. She was amazing. Those are all fun. And most of those are family friendly too, so you can bring your kids out. That's our whole purpose. We also do weekly lunches. So we have executive lunches. We have cultural connections where we do crazy things like sitting on stage with Mayan Chen while she's doing a private rehearsal for the symphony. We've done the Brooks and the Dixon and Ballet Memphis. And so it's obviously very focused on culture. But we do things like at the Fire Museum. So we hosted a nonprofit tour and lunch to be able to see the work that they're doing. So all experiential opportunities. And then we also have things like professional connection lunches, bringing business leaders on campus with the University of Memphis students, talking about things like personal branding, interviewing, resumes, so things that are important for them in their professional development. We also do things like female business leader lunch. The next one's coming up in a few weeks, but obviously women, talking about different topics, focused on things like how do women interact and network differently than men? What's the transition like between starting in one area and all of a sudden working your way up to CEO, and the way you have to change your outlook and the way you deal with people? How do you transition back to being a loving mother after having to fire someone? So things like that. Literally before I got off the phone or got into here, we're working with Governor Haslam. He's coming here next Monday at the Kroc Center, where I'm hoping to book this thing. But 2:30 in the afternoon. So 2:30 on Monday, that'll be another free opportunity to come out. So that's seminar. I mean, you name it. We're trying to help people and pull the strings together and make a difference. So media. This just goes on and on and on, but snapshot on this, we have the Giving Back column and the commercial appeal, we have the radio show on 600 WRAC, you have the Spark TV show, you have the Spark Awards, which here's the big award that people are going to win. So crazy, we have 13 different categories, all publicly nominated. Some of the categories have like 50 to 60 nominations. Terry's shaking her head because she saw them all. So the cool thing is, though, is that this is all publicly nominated. So it was one of those where we cast a wide net and we said, we have no idea what we're getting into, but we're going to give this a shot. And we were absolutely amazed at the people that responded. But it's pretty neat to know that we have everything from the youth spark, the collegiate spark, adult, legacy, corporations of different sizes, nonprofits of different sizes, teachers, education leaders in schools, 13 different categories, all focused on making a difference. And now we have a televised award show to be able to honor them. So things like that we're doing here. And then you have the Giving Back with Purpose book as well. All of those highlight good things going on, highlighting ways to get involved. It's all focused on engagement. And if you support nonprofits or whatever else would like to be on, just let me know. We also have, the last thing out of there was missing, you need a film. So we have a film festival. So Memphis Rocks Film Festival, really cool opportunity for you in marketing, obviously. These are 5-minute or less short films, cool things going on in the city. This year we teamed up with Fuel Film, so for 2015, and these are all going to be moments of kindness. So good moments celebrating the heart and soul of Mid-South, and now we have a chance to show them up. It's a sold-out theater, see it on the silver screen, promote our city all the way. We do it on YouTube as well. We have Memphis Rocks Film Festival. We also, too, if you see the Memphis Rock shirts around town, it's a Civic Pride campaign we launched, but it's also, too, 100% of the proceeds goes to benefit the MPD Fallen Officer Memorial. So these are all 100% focused on giving back. We have people from all around the world wearing them, which is really neat, on the Great Wall of China. So there's the Fallen Officer Memorial. This is one of the projects we're hoping to spearhead, 100% privately funded. 63 officers have lost their lives in the line of duty. We're one of the few cities that doesn't have a memorial, so we're changing that. But these are all things that we're spearheading. These are all the different things, community engagement, from cleaning up McKellar Lake to tutoring after school, planting trees and flowers. These are all the different things that we do on our end. But the key is engagement. There's some other examples. Telethons, huge day at Shelby Farms Park, free lunch, whatever you normally give out to a lunch goes to benefit Shelby Farms. We raised $6,000 just doing that. Thousands of kids with new socks and shoes at Samaritan's Feet, bringing in people like D'Angelo Williams and Steve Smith to do it. So we like to have a little fun. Give kids shoes and have some fun. 50,000 pounds. Last time I checked, actually, it's closer to about 60 to 75,000 pounds now out of McKellar Lake, which is insane. You have things like the Power of the Dollar campaign that we launched. So when you look at these executive lunches that we host, that's my steering committee. So we go to them and we say, look, what are the gaps? What do we need to be doing? What can we do together to steer this city? And one of the things was, one of the business leaders says, how crazy it is that we as local businesses don't even have a chance to even bid on local business here. Like, it all goes out to cities in Los Angeles and New York. They don't know that there's a lot of qualified vendors out here that can do a great job. So we did an impact study. We at the University of Memphis look at all the numbers and crunch them and pull a conservative, very conservative number. But for every dollar that's invested in Memphis, it's $1.70 in economic impact. And there's a ton of tax benefits and things like that, but it's hard to whittle that down into a 30-second commercial. And every $1 million helps create 11 new jobs. The neat thing is, if you Google this, you'll see like Anchorage, Alaska, other cities now have followed our exact template and are using this. Primarily, actually, we work with Strong Cities, Strong Communities in the White House, President Obama, using this exact blueprint. So it's kind of neat to see. So here's where it kind of gets into the fun, quick tips, and then we'll do Q&A. So these are things that I've been doing my whole life. My wife and I, here's your disclaimer, if you ever come to our house, we charge you money. But anytime we host things like football watching parties, anytime we do like an award for the Grammys or Oscars or whatever, we do all the food and drinks and everything else. But we say, look, whatever you would normally spend, all that money goes in a hat, and we're going to raise money. And so we've literally raised thousands and thousands of dollars for organizations like YMCA, the Boy Scouts, things that are near and dear to us. And it's an extremely easy way to do everything that we're talking about. Make it really easy. We're already going to have them over. They're friends and family. We're already going to provide food and drink anyway. Why not make it beneficial? So that way, if my team loses, which in my case, growing up in Dallas, the Dallas Cowboys, which luckily they won recently, but if they lose, I'm still happy because I've raised a lot of money for them. So I had a friend that did this last football season. He raised $15,000 over the course of the football season just by having people over his house. So you can do a lot by just incrementally building up. So this is the piece where we talk to primarily college students, and this breaks out into a whole other piece, but giving back gets you ahead. I'm a big believer in, we do a lot with students is, people, giving back is the right thing to do. Yes, it is. Giving back is the right thing to do. That's without saying. The reality is, though, it gets you ahead. That's where the realist comes in, where it's like, look, everything you do philanthropically will actually move the needle. And if you know in cause marketing, the difference is, and Lipscomb & Pitts is a sales-driven organization. I mean, when they hired me, I was not necessarily the black sheep, but I wasn't exactly like, hey, best friend, come over here. It's like, who in the world is this guy from LA that we're investing this money in to be able to give this freedom to go see what happens? The reality is, cause marketing, when you talk about it, a sale, if being sales-driven, I can go in tomorrow and make my phone calls, get my meeting. I know based on numbers, if I get that many meetings and appointments, I'm going to get this many deals, and it translates over to dollars. So however many meetings I have, there's a dollar expectation that I can assign. Cause marketing doesn't work that way. So the reality is, it builds up time, we invest, and all of a sudden, when you look back over the course of 6 months, 8 months, a year, windfall change. Well, now what's really cool is the reason I don't have to wear a suit and tie is the agency now, the Breakfast Club is $1.6 million to the agency. So that's the reality, is all the good work that we do, all the giving back. And the nice thing is they don't even look at it that way necessarily, like they don't even check now, they're just like, let him go do his thing, and let his team do his thing. It comes back in a windfall of benefit, because people come and they say, look, thank you so much for all you're doing out in the community. We could shop around left and right, but we want to come to you because you're helping so much. Thank you. And that's the part where when you talk about cause marketing and the power that it has, building trust, building integrity, making a difference in people's lives, you do it for all the right reasons, yes. But in the end, it actually does help you. And that's where, from a career standpoint in marketing, when you want to get into philanthropy, when you talk about getting into philanthropy, there's not any job that's just like, hey, unless you work for a foundation, you're going to be in charge of corporate philanthropy. You're actually going to be in marketing, advertising, sales. When I was hired, there was no money to pay me for the Breakfast Club. They paid me to run the marketing for the agency. So that's where I get the Director of Communications title. I had to run all the marketing for the agency. So all the marketing contributions, sponsorships, everything, I was doing it all. And, oh, by the way, on the side, see where you take this Breakfast Club, because that's the only way they can pay you. But now, over the last 7 years, obviously, that's where now I've been able to carve out to where this is my full-time job. So now I just get to help people and tell stories all day long, and it's amazing. But it's been a lot of hard work to get there. And now I'm one of the owners. So it's been a really fun journey. But the reality is, I'm the perfect example of you have to create your position, you can create your position, you can do it all, and giving back will give you everything that you want. Not only personally, but as a company. It'll give you a unique story, it gives you opportunities, and it gives you massive opportunities to develop personally and professionally. So here's where simple ways to get involved with us. You can sign up for our free newsletter. If you're involved with any nonprofits, which most of you hopefully are, for free you have access. You can sign up and put up all of your upcoming events. It self-populates, it automatically feeds over in our newsletter. 50,000 people is what it reaches. So all of that is extremely easy, all totally free. Come out to our events, which are totally free. Look at opportunities to host things like tours or executive lunches. All of those things that you're involved with, just simply reach out and say, hey, I'm involved with this. How about a tour? How about this? How about that? That's how all this magic works, is simply you giving us ideas and we saying, yes, let's do it together. Share your positive stories. So Medtronic was just on the radio show this morning. They'll be on this Saturday. We pre-record it. But it's all focused on positive stories for you and your businesses. How are you giving back? How are you creating change? President Rudd is on there as well. And then also, too, Women's International, which is focused on mission work. So that's our thing. So here's where it gets into helping you and some of the things. And I know it's obviously small, so we'll probably make this available to you. But our big thing is look at, obviously easy ways to share your story. So community newsletter, that's where on our end we started putting it out there for totally free opportunities. When you look at the newsletter, it's not about Lipscomb and Pitts. There's really nothing about Lipscomb and Pitts. It's all about good stuff going on. It's about nonprofits. It's about free events and free community events. Well, that newsletter obviously has caught on to where it's 50,000 people on the newsletter. It's a great opportunity to share stories. And so on that end, looking at ways that you can get outside of just your world to share and collaborate with others makes it extremely valuable. Free events. Look at free events. So Samaritan's Feet for us, if you ask a lot of people, if you ask 100 people what the Breakfast Club is, you'll probably get 100 different answers. One of them is, Allison, wherever she is, laughs all the time because people actually think she works for Samaritan's Feet. Because they come out to the Samaritan's Feet once or twice a year. That's their interaction with the Breakfast Club. They absolutely love it, but they think that we work for Samaritan's Feet. The reality is it's a great pull, it's a great gravitational opportunity for us to be able to draw them in. It's totally free, it's organized, they show up, there's a heart attached to it in terms of giving back, and it's super easy to bring them in to our family. So making it volunteerism easy. These are things on our end. We do modified work schedules. So we allow employees to take off early or leave early so that they can go and volunteer. And those are things that obviously if they are involved with different organizations, like Nicole's a good example where she's involved with a ton of different organizations, we try on our end to not only financially support, but to do things as well with volunteerism, nonprofit tours, engagements, putting together goodie bags, cupcakes, whatever it is, to be able to help based on her engagement. So supporting our employees with that. So making it easy, supporting them. This is a big one, obviously, for marketing, as you know, is, 3 people in a picture is just as powerful as 100. The reality for us is consistency. So what we try to do on our end is find something every single week that we can go out to and be involved with. And if it's 1 or 2 people or 10 or 20 or 100, it doesn't matter. We want to make sure we teach them, here's the camera, here's all the social media tags, here's all this, here's all that, but we want you, and we'll go out there if we can with you, but take a lot of pictures, make sure you get some video, and then after you're done, blog about it so we can share. And that's been the biggest thing on our end, and it's been a learning curve too, but just the power, obviously, of pictures to be able to share. And this is something too, we're working with nonprofits to make it even easier so that they will be able to blog back and share about your company. Empower employees to use social media, become brand ambassadors. That's a big one. We actually put together a one sheet that has all of our social media handles. Any event that we go out to, we put together a one sheet. Terry's the expert. I should have brought examples, but for launching the Spark Awards, it was a 3-page summary on here's all the handles, here's all the links, here's the verbiage, cut and paste it in. Let's make it easy. And then use your company's marketing resources to help nonprofits, social media mentions, marketing ideas, PR efforts. This is one that's really interesting. We pay for Sullivan Branding to do PR releases for nonprofits we support. So even think about some of the things creatively is we use our resources because we know that the value of a commercial appeal ad is $17,000. Well, how about I, for $150, pay for Sullivan Branding to get a press release out to all the media, knowing that if you get a good page ad, that's $17,000 of value for your nonprofit. That's huge. And it's one of those where paid advertisement is criticized necessarily. It's not necessarily, but if somebody writes about it, well, now it's truth. Well, the fact that somebody's writing about it, that it's a full-page editorial on that or article on that nonprofit, that's valuable. So those are things where when you step back, we use our resources to be able to help with things like that. Let's help you with a press release. Let's also, too, use our advertising to sponsor a nonprofit. So in other words, instead of us running commercials about Lipscomb Pitts Insurance, we're going to run it about the Boy Scouts, and we'll say, brought to you by Lipscomb Pitts Insurance. So we do things, anything that we try to do is philanthropic. Even the book. The book came to the publisher and they're like, hey, we want to do a book. Have you ever thought of doing a book? No. Here's the caveat though, if we do the book, 100% has to give back. Wait, what? We're a publishing company, we're supposed to make money. Here's the deal, everything we do is philanthropic. So if you go in with that mindset, it becomes really easy where it's like, look, no one makes $1. Everything we do is philanthropic, 100% has to give back, so that's the deal. If you want us to write the book, they didn't obviously put any money into marketing it, so that's where it's on us now. But that's the trade-off. But the reality is, we can now say 100% gives back, and we've raised thousands and thousands of dollars to local youth literacy programs. So it's a book about giving back and gives back. That's the heart and soul of who we are. So that's our prism. That's our deterministic lens that we view the world through. Leverage free resources and relationships, especially to engage millennials. That's a big one. You have a ton of free resources. You have a ton of relationships you can use at your disposal. It's just a matter of how you mobilize on it. Adopt a local project, things like Samaritan's Feet, where you can adopt something local that has an impact. Here's the other thing. Many organizations do amazing mission work overseas. The problem is you can't see that, touch it, feel it. You can't see the results here. So our big thing is there's a lot of need right here in our own backyard. That's great that you're doing overseas work. Continue to do it. But find ways that you can engage locally to make a local impact so that we can share those stories together. So adopt a local project. Invite others to participate. These are your calling cards, your storylines. Make sure your employees know and they're engaged, because that's a big thing. Your top may be, your communications team may be, but if your employees aren't, you're missing a huge avenue to be involved and to share and celebrate them. And the thing that we found, once we get our employees, like Tad Wilcox is a good example, he's not in our communications department. Once we kind of unleashed the chains on him and said, hey, you're an ambassador. Go out and promote and get involved and get our employees involved. Whatever you want to do, like this is your company too. He's a millennial, man, he's taken it to a whole new level. He was in charge of our YMCA corporate games. He's been in charge of things like the Dragon Boat races and getting employees, they're now doing social mixers on their own. So empowering them and giving them the tools is huge. Do your homework ahead of time. This is another one, think relationships. Here's where I transition a little bit, but anytime you come out to events, like today is a good example. You can reach out to the events, you can reach out to us and say, hey, who's going to be there? Give me some names of people that are going to be there. Go online, Google them, LinkedIn, find out information about them. Every single one of us, we put our board involvement on our LinkedIn page. So here's the big thing that we tell people all the time about our Breakfast Club. Find out who's coming, go on ahead of time, you see their picture, you see the things they're involved with. So instead of me walking up saying, hey, so tell me about FedEx and da-da-da-da, what do you do at FedEx? I can actually say, hey, you know what? I know that you guys are heavily involved with things like the Mississippi, the Mid-South bike ride, and it's the Bike 50, the 150, and talk about some of the teams, or talk about you guys are sponsoring the Madonna Learning Center. It's a huge organization. What are some of the things that you guys are doing tied to that? My conversation is dramatically different. Whereas every single person is talking business, I'm coming in talking about community engagement. And I guarantee you're going to be the one person they always remember after the fact is you weren't the one that was trying to sell me anything, you were the one trying to get to know my heart. So we encourage people all the time, do your homework ahead of time. Find out the things that they're involved with. Let that be your lead-in, let that be your intro. But also, too, that's the way to build real relationships. And then find ways to act as a catalyst. So that's kind of the snapshot. These are nonprofit tips, all that kind of stuff. That's who we are, that's what I do, that's what my team does. And actually, so we have Amanda Newman right here, Nicole Blum, Allison is upstairs probably somewhere. We have an intern from U of M, Anna Clear. We also have Rohana Hanley, but we have a full team that is actually doing this, which is pretty amazing in and of itself to think we started with one person, where it's like, hey, see we go this thing, and all of a sudden now we actually have a full team where we've been able to hire and grow to do all the things that we're doing. So it's an honor for me to have these bright ladies on my team doing amazing things, and they've taken it in a whole new direction. So that's who we are, what we do, and now the fun is fire away and ask questions.
Talk a little bit about the selection process of what nonprofits you work for or work with, because I'm sure you get millions of or hundreds of requests from nonprofits in the city.
So the question is the vetting process to work with nonprofits. So yes, we work with just about every single nonprofit. It really is, honestly, it's as simple as two things. One is the nonprofits that the companies support, so the partners. Obviously, we try to put a heavy emphasis on if our partners support the nonprofit, we want to definitely make sure and do everything we can to throw our resources at them. But the other one, in all honesty, is the organizations that come to us and just say, hey, we need help, and they have a collaborative nature. The one thing on our end is those that come with a nature of teamwork will do anything and everything to be able to help. So there's really not necessarily a vetting process. It is. So here's the other thing that kind of leads in a little bit, but this isn't embargoed or anything in terms of a press announcement. But one of the things we're working on is a board bank. So one of the big things that nonprofits struggle with, obviously, is finding good board members, right? So we all tend to turn to the same people that we just know. You've got your circle, but there's really no outside to know who's maybe interested in your organization, but you don't know yet. You're not connected. So one of the things, our next step, just so you know, as the Breakfast Club, is we're creating for free a chance for all the nonprofits to be able to put a profile about themselves. So their contact information, easy volunteer opportunities, obviously their top programs. But then, on the other side, so all that's totally free, is we're going to allow anybody and everybody to fill out a board bank. So capture your basic contact information, your availability, so before work, after work, during work, things you're interested in, whether it's marketing, finance, operations, those types of things, what you want to be doing, and then also, too, what industry you want to serve. So maybe it's pets, maybe it's animals, maybe it's adults with disabilities, cultural arts, and then we'll give the nonprofits access to that list and that database to be able to bring those worlds together. So those are the things that we're working on already on our end, simply based on the fact that we try to help every single nonprofit, no matter how large, how small, 1 person, 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, we try to help them. If they're doing good work and they're collaborators, then we'll do whatever we can to push them. Questions?
Jeremy, I saw 2 points and I saw in your book, but trying to allow employees or encourage employees actually to go out even on some of the company time to get involved, and also the sharing of losing control a little bit of allowing them to engage in that social media to help do that. Have you found those 2 things to be one of the major issues that corporations struggle with in terms of, they have their bottom line as an organization, and how much can you do that? And that obviously requires some management of that. And the social media huge. I mean, you talk about trust, and it's great when that trust is built well with a partnering nonprofit, but when things could,
Sure.
Yeah,
and to me, there's no easy answer to that. The reality is it comes from the leadership. So on our end, we're a sales-driven organization. We make no bones about it. We've got to have you in the office as much as possible, and you've got to be doing your job for us to be able to maintain. The key, though, is that when you have the leaders, so it's not mixed messages, saying, hey, you know what, as long as your team can cover you, and this is where you have to be fair, is so, it's not necessarily that one team has the full day off, as it is one person from that team, one person from this team, so that the others can cover for them. But we make it accessible so that we're not necessarily going out there in droves of 130 employees, as it is 5, 10. But the neat thing is, back to the point, is 5 or 10 is just as valuable as 100 in many cases, especially if it's consistently. And so that's where it definitely has to come from the leadership, because if they're getting mixed messages and they're saying, oh, we want you to go out, but we really need you here, and sorry, then it's not going to work. The other thing is, when you talk about empowering them, FedEx puts their employees through a training program. we on our end try to make sure and train them, okay, these are the things that are proper etiquette, this is the way to, to do it the right way. But even on our end, I mean, it's going to be a lesson learned. I mean, I woke up this morning and saw where the Breakfast Club had tweeted certain things. I'm like, wait a second, that wasn't me. That was someone on my team, but I don't know who he is. So, but I mean, the reality is it's going to come from different places and different people, and they're going to have different perspectives. But in the end, it's all good stuff. And so that's where, from my end, I don't care. It's the fact that they embraced it and they're empowered enough to do that and to respond to people and to take it on their own. That's the part to me that's amazing. And so it's the same thing where as a company, once you start realizing, okay, I'm going to train them, and obviously you police it a little bit, which we do, but we have so much more to gain by them sharing and them virally sharing. And Johnny does a thing called the 3P, where he puts out 3 positive notes and he says, hey, tell 3 people, and they tell 3 people. You'd be surprised how fast it adds up to 10,000 people. It adds up really fast. And especially when you start talking about social media, you can move pretty quickly. But you've got to be able to trust your employees. I mean, my thing is, if you're hiring them and you trust them to do their job, why not give them the skills? You have to train them, but give them the skills to be able to ultimately succeed. And that makes your job a little bit easier in terms of now you've got hundreds of advocates out there. And they're doing it every day. I mean, think about that. I mean, people at church or whatever else, like, our employees now are actually motivated, so it's like they'll take pictures and they'll share it, and they'll share it on different places, and it's like they're out there, but they're ambassadors for us. Right, I can't be in all those places. I mean, for them, like, they can take the camera out, and they can do whatever, and they can be tweeting about it. I can't be in all those places, but they can. And all of a sudden now our voice is that much louder. We actually just brought on a blogger, CJ Kirkland. She's not an employee. She just said, I want to be out there. I'm a writer. I've got free time. My husband's an actor. He's doing good. I can, go out and just cover stuff. I just want to write. But I need a forum. I was like, well, we'll give you a forum. You're a guest blogger. There you go. New title. You want a card? River City Rising. We're just going to launch it. But I mean, she's an amazing writer. She just wanted a voice. And it's like, we'll give you a voice. That's easy. As long as you're coming from a good place and you have a positive focus, then we'll give anybody a voice. But that's where it's, hey, look, there's blocking and tackling. We'll teach you that so that we all work together. We're using the same vernacular, just so to speak. But the reality is, let's roll. Good person, let's go. But that's where it comes down to is trust and leadership. Other ones? Well, you have to have questions. It's a marketing group, you have to have questions. No questions? Crazy? Like anything? Throw out anything.
I have a question. We mentioned some consulting earlier with some of the nonprofits. I know a lot of that is to get ready for the collaborating. So do you do any other consulting for them? Like if they're maybe starting and they need a launch type of thing and they want to give a look at this and the Breakfast Club for this collaboration, how much consulting can you help them with?
So the question is consulting. So the neat thing is that by bringing in guest speakers and a lot of the different things that we're doing, we built up a lot of friends, and they share our story. And so someone like Bertice Berry has already told the Millionaires Roundtable, and there's quite a few other groups that she's already reached out to just based on her experience here. Because keep in mind, this is a corporate group for the most part that's focused on just giving back. And so it blows them away where Manny Ahome is like, church groups do this, but I've never seen a business group actually do this, where you actually give away socks and shoes and you have CEOs come out. And that's the part that blows them away. And so what happened out of that is now other cities and other breakfast clubs that are still true to their mission, which they've rapidly been closing their doors, we've been consulting with them. And so we travel a lot and work with them on sharing our model and blueprints and plan and stuff. And so to answer your question, we do quite a bit of it. We try not to do a whole lot of it simply because our focus is Memphis. But our legacy is to be able to help others. And so we have fun with it. It's fun. LA, Philadelphia, DC, Birmingham, Nashville. What are some other ones? Fire away. Come on. Anybody who's read the book, has some questions? I did a thing and they had 2 hours worth of questions for me at the book thing, felt like. They were asking everything from my past to Boy Scouts to tennis to marketing in college and friends and random Merv Griffin experiences and all sorts of crazy stuff. So you guys have to have something. Come on. We've got 5 minutes left to fill. Otherwise, I'm just going to start telling you crazy stories. Okay.
Okay, so sometimes when you're asking people to get involved in things, it's like crickets. They're busy, they have priorities that are not your, things that you're trying to tell them that they can get involved in. And so a lot of times it's like you're throwing the fishing line and everyone's running away from it. So how do you get them to stay involved?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And actually, the reality is, so when we first started transitioning the Breakfast Club, there was like 10 partners in it. So we've gone from 10 to obviously 75. And each one of them are category exclusive, so there's a lot more of the nuances that are involved, which I'm not going to get into. But the crazy thing is, people looked at me like I was a ghost. The very first time I was like, we're going on a nonprofit tour. We're going to go check it out. Like, let's go see a nonprofit tour. And I was like, we do business development. We're in this for business. I was like, that's great, but you need to know what's going on in your own backyard. Like, you need to be involved. You need to see the good things going on. You need to have an appreciation. You need to go. We're in it for business. Okay, that's great. Well, the executive director's going to be there. And oh, by the way, I'm inviting the CEO of this company. Okay, I'll go. So, I mean, I hate to say it, but the reality is what's in it for me. And it goes back to the students of, why do I give back? What's the purpose? Yes, it's the right thing to do, but I'll do it on my own free time like I'll do it some other time. It's like, no. It's all woven together. You get to the point where you can't separate it out. We can't separate everything that we're doing with the business side with the philanthropic side. I can't separate myself, that's for sure. The reality is once you start kind of getting people aligned, the very first out of the gate, you're going to have to say, look, the executive director is leading it. You probably want to get to know that executive director. Oh, by the way, and this is something I do when I set up nonprofit tours, I make sure the executive director is going to be there, and I also to make sure some of the board is there. So that way you've got at least 2 to 5 people that are people that they want to meet. And when you start telling people these people are going to be there, that starts pouring. And so, I mean, everything is relationship driven, everything is people driven. And when you get into it, I mean, that's the key is you have to kind of use a little bit of the bait of these people are going to be there. But intentionally, and that's when we set up events, we make sure and we know ahead of time, these are the people that are going to be there, these are the stakeholders, so that I can tell you, you're going for this, but oh, by the way, you're going to meet these people. And, by and large, anything that we host, I'm in every single one of them. So anything that is Lipscomb Pitts Breakfast Club in terms of our brand, like I'm in every one of them because I want to make sure that the experience is right, and I also want to make sure, too, I'm the connector. So I've got to be able to know, hey, you'd be good for you, you'd be good for you, I've got to introduce you, because people naturally are not outgoing. Like most of them, especially CEOs, are wallflowers. I mean, if you watch Bill Rhodes, the very first place he's usually going to go is to the bathroom. And then he'll come out and he'll pick out on the side. Because usually they're hounded, right? So when they come out, it's very rare that people just genuinely start pulling them into conversations and greet them with no ulterior motive and just connect dots. And that's where, back to doing your homework, the more you know about people, the more you can put yourself in their shoes. It becomes really easy to introduce them. And all of a sudden now you're the glue where it's like, oh, hey, here's so-and-so, here's so-and-so. And that's another part where people are afraid to go to things because they don't want to be the outsider. They don't want to be the wallflower. They don't want to be out there by themselves. So they tend to go to places where they know people and they're comfortable. And so if you're the person that's there and you can be the glue and make it comfortable for everybody, they'll walk away because all of a sudden now they only knew you, but the fact that you were the connection to the other 5 people and all of a sudden now they know them, they're going to keep going back over and over and over. And the next time you ask, they'll just automatically say yes. And you build up enough trust where all of a sudden then you don't have to start telling them the names. Doesn't happen overnight, but it definitely does happen.
So when are you going to have a regular slot on the news?
So, ironically, so here's a little bit of a segue into positive news. Really amazing what's going on in Memphis in the sense that George Cogswell from the Commercial Appeal came in. He's massively focused on giving back. Obviously, he can't do editorial, but the reality is, if you look at the Commercial Appeal, there's been more positive stories in the last 6 to 8 months than there ever was in years combined. It's heavily focused, giving back, foster parent, extremely involved. Morgan Bohannon, Memphian, Clear Channel Radio, came in about a year and a half ago, completely transformed to where they're now heavily involved in the city, now iHeartMedia. WKNO, obviously. Channel 5, Tracy Rogers coming back in. Lee Meredith, good guy, not really pro-Memphis, in terms of really taking a step out and saying, I'm going to do this. So Tracy has done that. She started doing it better Mid-South. You'd be surprised. She got a lot of backlash from Raycom Media. And they're like, why would you do a positive focus feature? And she's like, no, because it's the right thing to do. And so what's happening right now is you've got this amazing firestorm to where people are sick of the negative news. They're coming out. Companies now are saying, don't put me next to negative news or I'm going to pull my advertising. Money talks. Also, too, they're being very vocal, which I encourage you to do because it makes a huge difference. When the news directors and publishers and everything else get emails and letters from you saying, hey, we want more positive news. We greatly appreciate this article that ran. The thing is, negative news gets a lot of sensationalism, obviously. It gets a lot of social media shares. They track everything. It's a business. Marketing is a business. Media is a business. They track everything. They know exactly. Well, if you start following up and you start sending in letters, hey, thank you so much. The whole reason the Giving Back column was color, added color to it, was because people reached out and said, thank you so much for a positive focused column. Thank you. So they said, we're going to add color to this. So the reality is they pay attention. But anyway, getting back to the point, is you're seeing people now really on a lot of sides take a very aggressive role with positive news. And the neat thing is that it's creating a lot of opportunities because here's the other thing. As soon as Tracy Rogers started doing Better Mid-South, she's like, I want to share this positive news. My pipeline's drying up. I have no positive news to share. Like she started reaching out to me, she's like, I need positive stories. I have nowhere else to turn. And the reason is because people have been sharing them forever and they just fell on deaf ears. So people stopped sharing them. Well, now when she wants to, she doesn't have a pipeline. So every single story we started sharing, she started doing. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, the pipeline's starting to get back. Well, now she's reached out and says, I'd like to do some regular stuff, and I'm not going to, because timing and everything else. But it's creating more opportunities for others that do have a positive light, because they're searching for them, to be able to do regular features. So that's the cool thing is, everything that you guys are doing, whether you realize it or not, the more you start getting aggressive with positive news, and I'm telling you right now, be intentional. Share it 3 times a day. Share positive stories. Go out and find it. You'll be surprised. They track it all. They look at it. Simple letters. They add up. They make a big difference. And it opens up a lot of doors. And the reality is you will start seeing more positive news. You'll start seeing them. They're focusing now, I don't know if you noticed, but they're focusing now on the victim, not the criminal, to humanize the story. They're also focusing now on solution. So in other words, it's not just about driving the negative and whatever else and telling the story. It's actually, okay, here it is. Here's how to get involved. Here's how to make a difference. That's a huge change. It's a paradigm change. But that's a big deal for us because if you just tell it and move on, people are lost. Now you've got to tell them, educate them, and then engage them. And if we can get them engaged, we win. Last thing I'll say real fast. Facing history ourselves, choosing to participate. I don't know if any of you went out to it. Benjamin Hook's library, amazing exhibit. Perfect for marketing. It was all pivotal moments in history, seen through the eyes of someone who was in that moment. And there was one in Billings, Montana. It was hate crimes. It was called Not in Our City, Not in Our Town. And the reality is there were hate crimes going on. The front page of the commercial, the paper there, ran a menorah. And they said, we want you to put this in every single window, every single place. We're going to kick these people out of our city. This is the media taking this sort of stance. And they did. They completely removed the people that were doing the hate crimes, and they kicked them out of the city. Think about that. That's the power of the media, the power of positive energy, the power of people coming together, is saying, you know what, not in our city, not in our town. And that can be Memphis. It's just a matter of how we rise up together. That's the part where we're definitely working on it. I encourage you to definitely do your part because when you look at it, where we're headed, together we can make a huge, huge difference. And that's my time. Thank you for coming out. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.